Hi everyone, it's Lindsay from High Altitude Astrology, and today I'm going to be talking about the full moon in Leo that's happening at 20 degrees of Leo on Sunday, February 9th at 12:33 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And I have the chart up here on the screen, and you can see that the full moon is when the sun and the moon are opposite one another. And the full moon is going to be in the sign of Leo, with the sun in the sign of Aquarius at 20 degrees. And I wanted to read the inside degree of the full moon at 20 degrees Leo because I think it really speaks to the energy of this full moon time. And this is from a book called Inside Degrees. It's by Elias Lonsdale, and it's this person's interpretation of each degree of the zodiac and what it symbolizes. A black pearl hidden in an oyster, working very hard to find again what is lost, to get at what is conspicuously missing. It takes tremendous inner forces to restore the pearl, but most of all, you must vanquish your pride and acknowledge from the core of your being that going through this world without your deep soul intact is hell. If you seek, you shall find. If you ache, you shall come to a restored wholeness, but not without the suffering, the grief, and the facing of the void. Initiation in the depths. It is a superb path if you have the courage and stamina for it. But midstream, it is cauterizing, corrosive, and deadly. Appearances are deceptive. Nothing is as it might seem for a while what matters supremely is guts and integrity. That's a really heavy degree. And I think it speaks to some of the energies of this time. And I'll explain why through looking at the chart. So that was 20 degrees of Leo. And Leo is about our self-expression. Leo is ruled by the sun, and just as the sun radiates light and warmth and heat out into the solar system, that's what the sun symbolizes in our own personal charts. So that's the energy of Leo. But this degree of Leo, which is 20, it's talking about how, and now that I think about it, it's really headed into the third decan of Leo, because every zodiac sign is divided into 10 degrees, and each 10 degree is considered a decan. So this is the third decan of Leo as it's moving from 20 to 30. And there's something about that placement or that point where the Leo energy is perhaps coming into more maturity. You know, in this degree talks about really relinquishing pride and acknowledge from the core of your being that going through this world without your deep soul intact is hell. So I kind of feel like it's that energy of like really having to kind of drop pretense and drop drama and drop really that, I mean, having pride is good, but excessive pride can be what gets us really entangled in situations a lot longer than we really need to be with them. And I feel like this degree is suggesting that with the moon at 20 degrees of Leo, what we are being asked of at this time on an emotionally expressive level, the moon, is to come toward life or be open to this emotional expression in this more elevated Leonian way. Now, it's indicating also that part of what happens in this process is there is a surrendering, there is a letting go, there is a grief in a certain way, because you know, it's like we may not be getting things the way we had wanted them or expected them, or been attached to them. You know, Leo is a fixed sign. So there can be an energy of attachment there. It's wonderful for really sustaining and radiating our light out into the world in certain ways or in certain endeavors. But when it comes to the need to really kind of step back or walk away from or really let go when the time is required, you know, this is something that also can involve sadness or grief. But it's for ultimately, you know, this transition or this process or this alchemy is necessary. That's what really brings true pride in ourselves, is when we can really find the grace in the midst of change and in the midst of the letting go that may be required of us. It talks about facing the void and initiation in the depths. And what matters supremely is guts and integrity. I think that word integrity and guts are actually really powerful too, because it takes guts to keep going. It takes guts to move forward, and it takes integrity to, in that Leonian fashion, kind of have enough self-worth and value ourselves enough to keep going and to not get entangled in these messy dynamics of trying to hold on out of the sense of excessive pride. So back to the chart here. Moon at 20 degrees Leo, expressing our emotional nature in this Leonian way, specifically in the way that I just described, opposite the sun in Aquarius. And so again, what makes this a full moon time is that the two energies are opposed to one another. So this is, the full moons are always kind of culminating times where something is revealed. You know, the moon is completely full and the light of the sun is completely shining on it. And so it's a time of revelation, and it's a time of understanding, and it's a time of realizing. And so with this moon in Leo, opposite that sun in Aquarius, the sun is about, again, shining our light out into the world. And with this Aquarian energy, Aquarius is all about, like, if we're shining our light in an Aquarian way, we're shining it in a way that recognizes that everybody is an individual. We're shining it in a way that recognizes that we're all connected through humanity and the way that we acknowledge and treat one another. The sun in Aquarius is also the recognizing our uniqueness and our quirkiness and our interesting, intelligent way of looking at the world. But it really has an energy of kind of like being able to kind of detach, because it's air, it's not emotion, it's not feeling, it's mental. So you could see how really these two energies could work together, because if you're coming from an emotional Leonian place at that 20 degree of Leo energy of having integrity and having guts and having dignity, and also being able to take a step back and shine our light or radiate our light in this Aquarian way of a little bit of being detached about things, we can see then that this full moon time could really, you know, help us to integrate changes that may be happening, and to also have just a very, in some ways, accepting understanding or accepting way of moving forward. Now, of course, Leo is all about being seen, and it's about having fun, and it's about really finding joy and pleasure in life too. That's what Leo is all about. And here's a few keywords: heart-centered dynamism, radiance, romanticism, expressiveness, athleticism, exuberance, supportiveness, generosity. So these are all really inspired ways of expressing the moon in Leo, our emotions in a Leonian way. But again, with this sun in Aquarius, it's also giving us that opportunity to kind of have a bit of a detached nature about how we are seeing things and viewing things and expressing things. I can kind of see how this could be really an interesting time where we can maybe learn how we can relate better with others, Sun and Aquarius, with all of that Leonian energy of inspired radiance and authenticity and fun and gregariousness. But at the same time, having a more open mind about things and experiences that we are going through right now. And really, it's about with the moon in Leo, the moon is about what makes us feel secure. So really, it's about tapping into our Leo nature. It's about finding our joyful expression and finding our childlike inner child type of expressiveness. It could be about tapping into our creativity, because Leo's very much about our creative spirit, because it's how our energy is reflected back to us through the things that we create. That's why this is also an opportunity to find the balance between expressing ourselves in a creative way in order to find that sense of security that we may be seeking, versus also finding our sort of open-minded understanding that everybody is unique and everybody is an individual in the midst of the group. And finding the balance, finding the balance between the expression of these two energies. Now, I want to talk about some of the other things that are happening in the chart. And one of the main things that's going on is that Venus at 1 degree of Aries, Venus just went into Aries on the 7th of February, and it's going to be there until the beginning of March. And you can see here, it's almost at a conjunction with Chiron at 2 degrees of Aries. And I believe it's maybe, the next day or so, Venus will be conjuncting exactly with Chiron. Venus in Aries, Venus is our loving energy. It also too can be related to creative expression. It's also about our social energy, and it can be about money and finances. And it's in the sign of Aries. Now, Aries is the very first fire sign of the zodiac. It's symbolic of spring bursting forth, the buds of the bulbs bursting forth through the ground. So there's this Venus in Aries energy. Now, I would like to point out Venus is actually in what's called detriment when it's in Aries, because Venus rules Libra. And so the opposite of Libra is Aries. And so it just suggests that Venus has a hard time in Aries, because Venus is sort of a energy of harmony and valuing beauty, and it's sort of a yin energy where it kind of kicks back a bit, whereas Aries is like the warrior and the aggressor and the initiator. So you can see how sometimes perhaps Venus in Aries might maybe be extremely impulsive when it comes to the things that, you know, we desire. That's what Venus is about. What brings us pleasure, what we find beautiful, then that we want to go out and sort of get in that Aries way. So it could be a time with this Venus in Aries for the next month where we need to be aware of that part of us that sort of leaps before it thinks a little bit in regards to matters of love and socializing and money too. But with this Venus conjuncting Chiron, Chiron is the wounded healer. And I was looking up from astrobutterfly.com, and she talks about 3 stages of Chiron. One is it makes us aware of what hurts. Then the next stage is it heals the wound. And then the third stage is it transforms the wound into a gift. So this Chiron in Aries, it's suggestive of some type of wound related to that Aries energy of self-assertion and of having courage and having confidence. And some of the ways that Chiron and Aries can play itself out is, you know, we may not go after things because we feel we don't deserve them, or you know, we don't value ourselves enough to go after the things that we want. Other ways that it could play itself out is that we're almost like overly aggressive because we're compensating for that part of us that, you know, doesn't really feel connected to our ability to self-assert. But with Venus and Chiron coming together, it's suggesting that there's some sort of healing, because that's another part of Chiron, is when we recognize the woundedness, we then can go through this process of actually, you know, healing the wound. And so this is suggesting, really, with Venus here, love and beauty, and Chiron, the wound, there's something, and it's all in Aries. It's all in this very self-oriented energy. There's something very powerful happening here with really learning to love ourselves and really learning to take pleasure in doing things that are supportive of ourselves. This could play a little bit into like the creative expression that I was talking about with the moon in Leo, because Venus again is ruled to creativity, and Aries again is about self-asserting. So there could be some sort of healing involved in that ability to take steps towards combining creative expression in order to create healing in our lives. But also, this is just about really how we express love in conjunction with the wound and the healing of the wound related to self-assertive energy. And this is significant at this full moon time because it's, again, happening at this full moon time. But it's also because at this full moon, perhaps this healing that needs to take place within the loving energy and the woundedness within love has something to do with our ability to kind of step back a bit with that Sun and Aquarius energy available to us and just not take things so personally. That's really what that 20 degrees Leo energy was talking about. Now, it's suggesting it may not be easy because we can feel hurt and we can feel wounded, you know, when we're not necessarily being seen in the way that we want to. That's Leo. But it's talking about, if you seek, you shall find. If you ache, you shall come to a restored wholeness. There's something that we can learn at this time, and a way that we can assert our emotions in this Leonian kind of way that does create some kind of balance between the sun and the moon that helps us to really work towards healing these wounds related to relationship and related to self worth, and or feeling the lack of self-worth, or some sort of wound in relation to how we assert ourselves. And real quickly, I want to talk about Venus in Aries related to Chiron and Aries. This really has a lot to do with valuing ourselves, because Venus is related to our values. And sometimes with Chiron there, it could be asking us to learn about valuing ourselves, especially in the sign of Aries. And I feel that there's something about learning to value ourselves in relationship to money, in relationship to what we value, in relationship to the values that we hold for ourselves, that can be healed right now in relationship to ourself in Aries. And this is really an opportunity to step into more self-worth around things like relationship and money, finances and creativity, and our values and how we value ourselves, and really heal anything related to ways that we may not have been valuing ourselves, and we may not have been able to really self-assert in regards to those themes. Now, what's also interesting to note at this full moon time is that Mercury at 8 degrees of Pisces will be still within a trine with the North Node at 7 degrees of Cancer. And this Mercury in Pisces, Mercury entered Pisces on February 3rd, and it's going to be in Pisces until early March. So Mercury in Pisces, it's also going to go through a retrograde time during those couple of months. But Mercury in Pisces is an energy that's helping us to open our minds, which is Mercury, to a more compassionate way of looking at life, and allowing that perspective to blend with, in a trine energy, the North Node in Cancer, which has to do with basically doing things, moving in a direction that makes us feel secure, that makes us feel nurtured, that makes us feel at home, that makes us feel mothered, that makes us feel comfortable. So it can address the theme of really learning to let go in the midst of all of these shifts and changes right now, in order to help us move more towards a more comfortable life for ourselves. So there's another couple of things happening at this full moon time that I wanted to address. And one is that the moon in Leo is going to be creating what's called an inconjunct, or a 150-degree angle to Neptune in Pisces, and then to Pluto in Capricorn. And the inconjunct can be an interesting energy, because it's like it's not like an opposition where things become illuminated. In this angle, it's more like we can't quite see, the energies don't quite see each other. And it can take a little more effort to find the balance and the harmony between the two. And I think with the moon in Leo, in conjunct Pluto in Capricorn, and in conjunct Neptune in Pisces, is just suggesting that, these two transpersonal planets, Neptune in Pisces and Pluto in Capricorn, they're all about helping us evolve. But the moon in Leo is more about the personal, and more about expressing the self with the emotions, moon, in this very sort of like self-centered way, in this very self-contained way where, it's about us. But these and our needs. But these two planets, Neptune and Pluto, they are about larger forces at work that are helping us evolve. So with Neptune in Pisces, again, Neptune has this energy of compassion and of transcendence and of letting go. And being in Pisces is just amplified because Neptune rules Pisces. So their energies are very similar. And Pluto in Capricorn, Pluto is all about death and transformation and letting go. And Capricorn is, of course, the structures that are in our worlds that have created, the foundations of our world. And, that is what is collectively changing at this time, especially with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction that happened. But, Pluto in Capricorn on a personal level, and in this dynamic with the moon and with Neptune at this full moon time, it's suggesting that there is something about transformation, and there's something about responsibly, that's Capricorn, going through that process of transformation, death and transformation, and letting go and rebirth that is required, that maybe that moon in Leo ultimately may resist, because the moon in Leo is about like, hey, I want, the things that make me feel good, that admire me, or that, I want. But again, that moon at that 20 degree, that third decan of Leo, this is a different type of Leonian expression. And in some ways, that degree description really actually gets along with Pluto and Neptune when it talks about the midstream. It's cauterizing, corrosive, and deadly. Appearances are deceptive. Nothing is as it might seem for a while. What matters supremely is guts and integrity. Guts and integrity. And I just feel in general, this time right now that we're all in together, it's been so dynamic and there's been so much going on, but there's been something happening on an energetic level that just feels like we have to walk a path, and we have to stick to our path, and we have to have courage. That's all about the moon in Leo. We have to have heart. That's all about the moon in Leo. And we have to stay with what we're doing. We have to move forward. We have to keep going if we want to ultimately become that black pearl in the oyster. We can't give up. We have to keep going. And I feel like this full moon time is really bringing some ability to kind of step back and have a little bit more of a dynamic perspective about things, and detached perspective about things, and to have, some courage and pride, but also integrity and guts to just keep going. And the final thing I want to say about this is that the Mars is going to be nearing the degree of the galactic center. And Mars, that is all about courage and going for it. And it's in Sagittarius, which is about our perspectives and our philosophies. It's also about our morals and our ethics. And when a planet is aligned with the galactic center, I'm going to read a little bit from astrologyclub.org. They say the galactic center is a source of energetic particles that bathe the Earth. It says the galactic center sits at 26 to 27 degrees of Sagittarius, which is a sign we know to be about freedom and truth. It follows from there then that wherever it sits in an individual's chart connects them to their freedom and truth. Okay, so it's talking more about when it's placed in somebody's chart, but you can get the feeling of the galactic center. It's about freedom and truth. So we've got Mars there at that galactic center energy, suggesting that we have to have courage, we have to have strength, and we have to move forward in a way that's aligned with Sagittarian energy, with our ideals, with ethics, with morals, with, like it was saying, freedom and strength. And so I think that's a very positive sign at this full moon time, that we really need to basically have faith. Sagittarius, keep moving forward, keep believing that we are going in the right direction, and that we have the strength and courage to do so. And in Leo, that is, a lot of self-confidence, expressing our emotional self with self-confidence. That's something we all may really be needing and appreciating at this full moon time, that this full moon in Leo can bring us, is just a lot of confidence to keep going with that Aquarian sun perspective of like, and it isn't even all about us, our personal self. We can recognize that everybody is an individual in the midst of all of this, and that they too have their journey and their path to go on, and that we can have that more larger awareness around life, and not get into sort of more petty emotional states if things may or may not be headed in the direction that we want them to, or we think they should be. Okay, well, that's my interpretation of the full moon in Leo. I hope that you have an excellent full moon, and that it's full of a lot of revelatory information for you, and that we take the time also to enjoy this full moon energy, because with the moon in Leo, our emotional expression, Leo again is about heart-centered dynamism, radiance, romanticism, expressiveness, athleticism, exuberance, supportiveness, and generosity. So all of those ways of expressing ourselves emotionally are heightened at this time, and we can find a lot of happiness in that, and we can find a lot of courage and strength in knowing that our emotions are going to be very full at this time, and that we can share them with others. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my channel, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.